We'll just go ahead and get started. Just go ahead and remind everybody on the meeting that we are recording this, so it will be able to be broadcast more widely to try to capture a large group of people so we can get input. But we do want to thank you so much for being here with us tonight and attending our first design workshop for the Emerson Park Transit Stop transformation. We are so excited to have you here with us virtually. Much better than being outside, braving the cold weather. So I think we can all agree with that. My name's Jackie Knight. I'm with CBB, and we will get into some introductions later. But wanted to first let you know that this project is being sponsored by Citizens for Modern Transit, St. Clair County Transit District, and AARP St. Louis. And they are the project sponsors for the Emerson Park Transit Stop transformation. So before we get into introductions, I did just want to give a quick outline for what you can expect this evening. We'll go ahead and do introductions of the project team as well as the project sponsors. We'll give a little bit of information about the project background and history. We'll talk about existing conditions at the Emerson Park Transit Stop. And then we'll get into a design conversation where we'll talk about concepts and different things that our team will be considering throughout this project. Finally, we'll finish the night with some question and answers. So if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to type those into the Q&A box. We will be answering those questions at the end of the meeting. But if we don't have time to get to all the questions, we will be following up to everyone that registered with an email that recaps the meeting as well as answers to any questions that we did not get time to address. We'll also be putting out a survey after this meeting, and so we'll include a link to the survey as well as a link to go ahead and get registered for our next design workshop. So let's go ahead and get started with introductions. Like I said, my name's Jackie Knight. I'm the project manager on this effort. I'm a multimodal planner at CBB. We're a local transportation, engineering, and planning firm with about 50 years of experience, predominantly in the St. Louis region. We have partnered with PGAV on this effort, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Catherine, to introduce herself, as well as give some more information about them.
Hi, everyone. My name's Catherine Homaker, and I'm an urban planner at PGAV. So we're a planning and architecture firm headquartered in downtown St. Louis, and we've done work all over the country and are excited to be the design lead on this project.
And thanks, Catherine. And like I mentioned, our project sponsors with us tonight, we have Kim Sella from Citizens for Modern Transit.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. We're so excited about this project. It's our second stop in placemaking. Our first one is in Maplewood, and we're excited to be here in East St. Louis to do this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. We also have Sheila Holm from AARP St. Louis.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. And what Kim said, so this is our second project together, and we are so pumped to see what will be. Thank you.
And then we also have Ken Sharkey from St. Clair County Transit District.
Oh, thank you. I had an opportunity to see the work that was done in Maplewood by Citizens for Modern Transit, also with the AARP, and I was very excited for an opportunity to try to incorporate some of this design and creativity on the Illinois side. So this is going to be hopefully our first project. If it happens and comes out really, really well, we'd like to be able to repeat this experience at a few other metro stops in St. Clair County.
Thanks, Ken. We also do have Marianne Taylor-Crate from Added Dimension, but she's going to be talking in a few slides on the engagement slide, but I did just want to go ahead and highlight that we do have her working on the engagement component of the effort. So just a few general meeting notes before we jump into everything. Again, we are recording this meeting and it will be posted online later. So definitely be on the lookout for that. If any of your friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, anyone who would be interested in this project wasn't able to attend, please feel free to pass them that link as well as our survey link so that we can try to really promote this robust engagement effort. Also, the Citizens for Modern Transit website is at the bottom of the presentation screen. So for more information about this project, as well as other things that Citizens for Modern Transit might be doing in the St. Louis region, please go to their website. That's also where you will be registering for our second design workshop. A link to that is posted at the end of the presentation. And finally, we do want to hear from you. So any questions that you have throughout the presentation, please feel free to type those in the Q&A box. We are going to have a brief question and answer session at the end. We do have a lot of material to cover tonight. So anything that's typed in the box, if we don't get a chance to address it, then we'll definitely be following up with answers to your questions. Okay, so jumping right into things, a little bit about the project and why we're here tonight. So I did just want to highlight where the Emerson Park stop is within the St. Louis region. It's circled right here in East St. Louis. You can see the proximity to downtown St. Louis is really nice. It's good for a quick commute. Also connecting to other places in Illinois. There's several bus lines that service this stop through for St. Clair County as well as Madison County. So it's really a good transit hub for a quick commute to various places throughout the St. Louis region. This is just some quick pictures. We'll get into some more existing conditions in a few slides, but this is really what the stop looks like today. There's a Metrolink stop where you can hop on the blue line or the red line. There's bus service, like I mentioned, with Metro buses that service St. Clair County as well as Madison County Transit. And then there's also this little grocery store next door, Neighbor's Grocery, where you can grab barbecue for lunch. You can get your cup of coffee in the morning, attached to a senior living unit, and then also some more housing next door. There's also a fairly big parking lot. So maybe in a pre-pandemic world, park and ride was a little bit more popular for people who didn't want to drive their vehicle over to St. Louis to commute to work. You know, right now, maybe the parking lot's not as used, but in a post-pandemic world, how is that going to change how the transit stops use? So that's something that we do want to keep in mind throughout this project. Quickly, this building right here that I've highlighted, this is actually a view from the Metrolink platform. And then this is a view looking at the building from where the bus shelters start. St. Clair County Transit District has engaged with an architecture firm to undergo a very extensive renovation / new building that will be going here at this site. So a lot of times in these projects, security might be something that gets brought up. And I just wanted to mention that this new building will actually be the security substation for the St. Clair County Transit District. So that's something to be on the lookout for the future. So it's something that, you know, we're not going to really be addressing in our project, but given what we're going to be looking at, it's something that we can't forget. And it's one thing that we did want to highlight. So what are we looking at and doing in this project? And how do we want to look at enhancing the Emerson Park Transit stop? So what is placemaking? Placemaking is really this idea about building our community around places. It's about thinking about how we can reimagine and reinvent our public spaces and really turn public spaces into the heart of our community. So, you know, the living room is where everybody hangs out in their house, but how can we turn these public spaces into the living rooms of our communities? You know, what type of creative patterns can we use that focus on cultural identity that really make a place somewhere where people want to go? Project for Public Spaces has this photo of, you know, kids that are out and about partaking and enhancing their community. And then just below that, a picture from Kansas City, Missouri, where, you know, you might not normally think of an intersection as a place that is fun or something that really draws out the cultural identity of a place, but it is something that's possible to do. And that's something that we're going to be focusing on doing throughout this project. So what makes a great place? Project for Public Spaces is a really great organization that talks about this. And believe it or not, you know, making a great place can be relatively simple. It's a place that's accessible and it's well connected to your community. It's a place where people are comfortable and they feel like they want to, you know, sit and socialize. It attracts people, might have various activities there. And it's just a really social environment where people want to keep coming back. You can see this public space in Toronto. You know, I doubt a lot of those people there know each other, but they're actively taking place in their community just by sitting out and about and socializing with their neighbors. Also, along with the idea of placemaking is this idea of play spaces. And the idea of play spaces really emerged when we start to think about how a lot of our public infrastructure is not designed to the scale of young children. Young children are like sponges. They're growing and they're absorbing and they're really taking in their environment. And oftentimes their environment isn't necessarily suited to, teach and to offer a place to play. So there are unlimited opportunities for children to enjoy their community, but it's about designing our spaces in a way that's playful, that makes children learn and enjoy their communities more. There's physical, social, and emotional benefits to play. So if we think about how we can incorporate play into our everyday environment, we can really think about enhancing the experience at our public spaces for children. And transforming everyday spaces into play spaces. Here's some examples of play spaces that I found to be very interesting. This table, both of these also happen to be in Toronto, but someone could sit and they could play checkers or they could play tic-tac-toe. The scale is just very friendly for children to be able to sit and to socialize. And then, the sculpture is something that's friendly. The scale is actually very big so that you can see it, when you're driving in a car, when you're walking by as an adult, but it also is a scale for a child where they can, run underneath the legs, and there's the fun paint on the ground. So there's various ways to incorporate play into our design of our public spaces. And that's something that we're going to be focusing on in this project as well. A few more ideas of play spaces. This learning how to do the cha-cha while you're walking on the sidewalk. If you can count to 10, then this is something that you can do. It's a very simple thing that really turns everyday infrastructure into something fun and something educational. And then of course, I'm sure that a few of you have probably seen these reading labs, but something sponsored by the public library that promotes, reading and just sitting and learning while you're in that space. There's multiple ways to do this, and it's something that we're going to be focusing on also with placemaking throughout this project. So a little bit about the history of this project. Like Ken and Sheila mentioned, they have worked successfully on this project in Maplewood. It drew interest from Ken, but you can see a picture of the Maplewood transit stop before. It doesn't look like a bad stop. There's a shelter, there's a bench, there's a trash receptacle. There is a little bit of branding on a pedestrian scale light, but it doesn't look like a place that someone wants to go. It's something that's comfortable for someone using transit, but not necessarily a place that someone wants to go and hang out and just be there and experience the atmosphere. But now when you look at the Maplewood stop, look at this transformation. There's colorful shelters, there's public art that incorporates the history of the stop along Manchester. There's paint on the ground that gives young children an activity to do. This bench is actually a glider. So it's something that even if you're not waiting for the bus, you might just sit on the bench and glide. This is really how transformative this project can be. And so that's why we're so excited to be engaging with you tonight and start getting your input on everything we hope to accomplish. So what are the goals of this project? Well, number one, we really hope to activate the space surrounding the transit stop. In doing that, we want to engage with the East St. Louis community so that we can ensure that you all enjoy this location. We want to enhance the user experience for people while waiting at the stop, but then we also want to enhance the experience for people that might just want to come to the stop and hang out. Like I mentioned, there's several land uses that are adjacent to the stop that really make the stop an opportunity ripe for becoming a community living room, if you will. And then we also want to promote the rich cultural heritage of East St. Louis throughout the design of this project. So the timeline. Right now, we're in the engagement phase, so we really want your input. We're going to be starting our design concepts after tonight, but also still doing some public engagement. Marianne will talk about on the next slide. March 2nd is our next design workshop. Again, there will be a link to register to that meeting at the end of this slideshow tonight. So please go ahead and register, and please spread the link far and wide so that we can try to get all of your friends, family, coworkers, anyone you know to register as well. March 23rd will be our third design workshop. At that meeting, we will be unveiling our near final concept plans. And then our final concept plans will be announced the last week of March with construction in early summer. So I'm going to turn it over to Mary Ann very quickly to talk about the engagement component of this project.
Thanks, Jackie. My name is Mary Ann Taylor Crate, and I'm going to just share with you some of the things that we've been doing as of today in terms of doing outreach and engagement, trying to get the people who use this space and who maybe have a desire to use this space, you know, transit riders, commuters, residents, businesses in the area, how we are getting them connected to this project. As Jackie indicated, our goal is to ensure that this project reflects, you know, what the community wants, what the community sees as a vision and how they want to use this space. And we're really trying to activate this space for this space to be able to be something that, you know, not just promote transit, but also promote the rich cultural heritage of the area. To date, we have what we're doing now is we are going out and we're doing community street team surveys where we're doing meeting writers. We were out yesterday on a very, very cold day, but we got a chance to talk to a lot of the users of the system to ask them in terms of what their vision was for the space and how they currently use the space and what they think, what new amenities might be there. Other opportunities that will be coming along in terms of getting youth involved. That's one of the things that we're working on as well. We're working outreaching to the schools to get youth involved because we want them to submit their ideas and designs, concepts for consideration that we can present to the project team for them to begin to think about how they would like to activate the space and use it. So if you have a youth group, youth teams, young artists who you think this would be a great project, we want to hear from them. So we ask that you share this information with them as well and have them submit to us their designs in terms of what their ideas and concepts are for the space. How you can get involved is doing what you're doing right now. We're asking, you know, thank you for participating in tonight's event. We're excited to have you here, and we're asking you to continue to participate in the upcoming workshops that Jackie mentioned that's coming up. Also completing the survey. The survey is going to be available online. We ask that you share that with your neighbors, your friends. Please get as much input we have, as much input as we can get, the better the project is. And then, as we talked about, participating in our future meetings.
All right, thank you, Mary Ann. So lots of opportunities to get involved, and we hope not only that you get involved, but that you encourage others in your network to get involved as well. Okay. So before we get into the design, we want to talk about what's existing, what we're working with, what we have seen and experienced so far. So this is our existing conditions. You can see on this picture right here on the left, there's a lot of concrete. You know, it's something that we noticed when we went out there, like, wow, this space is really gray, but it really makes it a blank slate for a lot of opportunity. So this is our primary project zone from the first bus shelter to this Emerson Park ticket building where there's the Metro Plaza. But that doesn't mean that the project might not spill over to here to engage people from the community over here, or maybe even, you know, over here to draw your eye to something. So that is our primary project area, but understanding that we want to draw people in, there are, you know, going to be spillovers. The existing lighting, you know, isn't too bad. It's not very decorative, but it is a nice pedestrian scale so that when people are at the stop, they probably feel safe with good lighting conditions. Right here is facing out towards that blank wall that I mentioned, is this loop where the buses pull in, where cars might pull in, and then it connects to the parking lot just right over here. Again, a lot of concrete, a lot of gray. We noticed there isn't really a lot of shade. So we were out there when there was snow on the ground, but we can only imagine, you know, in July, there's nothing really to protect you from the heat of the sun. So that's something that we're already thinking about. Here you can see where the Metrolink tracks run, just adjacent to this area where we're really focusing on. And this is where about 6 or 7 bus shelters are that run all the way down. Like I said, where buses that service Madison County and St. Clair County are picking up transit riders. A lot of people that we talked to during our rider engagement are commuting by bus and Metrolink. Again, our main project area right here. You know, there is a little pop of color in the Metro Plaza. It's just a Metro logo branded on the ground with a few blue benches. And that's about what we're dealing with right now in terms of something that's not gray. And then we also do have a big parking lot. So that's something that is really good for people who want to park and ride. Because of the pandemic, a lot of the parking and riding is probably down, especially with people working from home. But in a post-pandemic world, we have to think about planning for that as well. The parking lot, you know, presents another opportunity to draw people in from the community. So we, like I said, Mary Ann's already been out there doing rider engagement. Catherine and I have already been out there doing rider engagement. And, you know, we've just been talking to people about what they think about the stop and what they want to see. A lot of people we talked to rely on public transportation. So they're commuting by bus and by Metrolink. One woman that I talked to said the park and ride used to be really popular, but during the pandemic, it just hasn't been so much. A lot of people feel that the stop is comfortable and easy to use, you know, very intuitive to get from point A to point B where you need to go. And then people really appreciate the quick access to downtown St. Louis. Surrounding area, things that we want to focus in on trying to draw the community into the stop. Neighbors Grocery, we already showed a picture of that earlier. This housing complex right here, you know, how can we draw residents over and turn this into a really vibrant public space for them? There's also that senior living. And then, like we mentioned, the park and ride lot is another opportunity. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Catherine to talk about the design components.
Thanks, Jackie. So as we started to think about, you know, we've been out and we've done rider engagement. We have taken a lot of pictures and done some analysis of the existing conditions. Our next step is to really start thinking about what the design components might be. And so what we're going to walk you through on the next few slides are just some options. So these aren't necessarily the things we'll go with for the design, but they're just some different options from around the country to get you all thinking about what might make sense in a space like the Emerson Park stop, to like Jackie said, to bring some more life, to activate the space, to try to capitalize on a lot of the surrounding neighbors and other amenities that we already have at the stop. So if you go to the next slide for me, Jackie. So the first one is seating. As you all saw in some of the pictures, there are some benches on the transit stop itself and then the bus shelters, and there's a couple of benches in Metro Plaza, but they're not very interesting. And there is an opportunity to think about seating from a design perspective rather than just seating as a place to sit. And so you'll see on the screen here some different examples. There's things like swings or fun colored seating or seating that also serves a wayfinding purpose, like the bus stop made out of the letters that spell bus. Will you go to the next slide for me, Jackie? Here's some other options that serve a little bit more as art. So they still provide the need for seating, but they also serve some other purposes by creating some interest at the space and providing an opportunity for some additional public art. So another piece we'll be looking at is public art that ties to the history of East St. Louis. So you can see some images here from communities around the country that really tie to the history and identity of the place. So one way that we can encourage people to come visit the Emerson Park station is by creating a place that they want to see. And so by utilizing art, there's the idea that we can capture some of that story and some of that cultural history and also create a place that people find really interesting. Here's a few more examples of public art. So public art can look like something on the fence. You know, there's a lot of fencing around the area, so maybe that's an option. Could do something like what was done in Maplewood and put art actually on the ground, on the cement, to take away a little bit of that gray. There's a possibility for murals or art maybe on the bus shelters that exist already. We were also thinking about sound. Can we integrate any sound elements to this place? And so that could look like some of these examples on the screen where people are creating the sound. It could also be maybe piped in sound or music that could create a more lively space as part of the design. We also heard a lot about the lack of shade. So as Jackie mentioned, it's really cold right now, so people don't think about the lack of shade, but in the heat of the summer, it's a long walk from the bus shelters all the way to getting on the Metrolink. And that whole walk, there is no shade. It's just a lot of concrete, no trees. And so thinking about how we could integrate something like these shade structures that add color, but also help to get some covered areas, I think would be something we'll consider to add both a rider amenity and some interest to the area. We'll also consider lighting. So there is pedestrian scaled lighting there now that I think helps a lot with security and people feeling safe, which is what riders told us they felt at the stop. There's also some other ways you can use lighting to create a more inviting space. So the image on the left you'll see is a more of a traditional pathway lighting that just kind of guides people in a certain direction. So something like that might be useful if we want people to take a certain path, or more creative ideas like lighting projection or these lighted spheres like we have in City Garden in downtown St. Louis. These are some different ways that we can add, it's almost like art, interest to the place using lighting alone. I think we've got it. Yeah, here's a couple of more where they have used lighting to create a place you'd want to go check out. You can imagine if you were a neighbor in the area, or even just getting out of your car to hop on the train, that if there was a cool lighting structure, you might go check it out just to see what's going on. So we want to figure out how we can use lighting to create interest. We'll also look at landscaping and greenery. So this is a really gray space, but how can we integrate things like native plants or planters with trees or other public art that has green elements to really feel like it's a lush place you'd like to hang out rather than sort of a barren gray concrete land. Here's a couple of examples of planters in the St. Louis area. So the one on the right, you can see that they've actually taken the fleur-de-lis and put it on the planter. So that actually does tie to the cultural identity of the city while also adding green. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to combine some of these elements to create the kind of place we'd want to hang out. And then we'll be looking at wayfinding and signage. So this stop has the signage you need to determine where you need to go, but it doesn't have a lot of signage that gets at what does this place really feel like and what does this community mean? And so things like signage on the fence or large monument signs that also serve as public art might be something to consider here. Can you go to the next slide for me, Jackie? Or there's things like this sign on the right that gets at the history of a place. So maybe some markers that get at important pieces of East St. Louis history. There's a lot of options for what the wayfinding and signage could look like, but the idea that it would contribute to the sort of creative identity of the place, I think will be important. And then bike parking. So several riders bike to the station and then take their bikes with them on the Metrolink because there isn't really suitable bike parking now. And so the idea that we could integrate some kind of creative bike parking into the space that both serves a function for those folks that might want to leave their bike and not take it with them on the train, but that also adds kind of a fun element to the space. And then we'll look at paint. And so you've seen a few examples of the painted underpass or the painted mural or the paint on the ground. Paint is a really easy way. The Metro Plaza, you know, that's paint, creating that Metro logo. So the idea that we could use paint in this space to create some kind of easy, relatively low cost, creative interest that people would want to come check out is something hopefully we will be considering. And then there's shelters. So in the Maplewood station transformation, which you'll see in the middle, they utilized a colorful film that went onto the existing bus shelters. And then the examples on the right and the left have done the same thing. So the idea that the existing bus shelters could be amended to create a more creative space, both keeps costs down and it allows for a little bit more interest. So whether it is, you know, that's the North Carolina state bird because it's a bus shelter in North Carolina. And so could we pull in some kind of historical piece to add a little bit of interest to the existing bus shelters, but still get to keep those because they're in really good shape? Those are the kinds of things we're going to be trying to pull into the design to add creative elements and ensure the space still serves a really good functional purpose. Okay, so now we're going to get into a little bit of an engagement piece. So we're going to run through what we call a visual preference survey. So what this means is we'll throw some images on the screen and tell you a little bit about them and ask for your kind of immediate opinion. So where does your eye go? What really resonates with you? And the information we gather tonight is anonymous. We'll show the results, but it'll all just be as a group. So feel free to share your opinions about what you think, and it'll start to help us shape what we're thinking in the future design-wise. So the first one is seating. So you'll see 3 options here. Option 1 is a more interpretive art option. Option 2 is kind of a fun, colorful option. Option 3 is a swing. So think about these. Which one do you find most interesting and exciting? Hopefully you all can vote on the screen. Jackie will tell us when the votes are in. Hope we can't hear you, Jackie, but here we go. Okay, so it looks like we do have some votes here. Yeah, so option 1 and option 2 received the most, and then 1 person enjoyed option 3. So we're just going to run through a few of these, and you all can continue to share your preferences. Can you go to the next slide for me, Jackie? All right, so this is the shade structure option. So option 1, this yellow kind of bigger flag option is, I would say, more of a traditional option, and the option on the right is more of a creative, more art that also happens to function as shade option.
All right. Looks like all the votes are in, so I'm going to go ahead and end it. Share the results.
So there you go. It's kind of a mixed bag on that one as well. All right. You go to the next one for us. Okay, so this one is about paint. So on the left, you're looking at a painted concrete mural as opposed to a mural on the side of a building, which is option 2.
All right. It looks like we have a majority of the votes in, so we'll go ahead and end the polling and share the results.
Oh, look at that. Okay, so in this case, there was a preference for the art on the ground. All right, this one's about lighting. So option one is, I would say more of a traditional pathway lighting. So if you're more concerned about security or you feel like there just needs to be more lighting for the purpose of function, you might go with option one, as opposed to option two, which is utilizing light as a form of art.
All right. Looks like the votes are in, so we'll go ahead and end. And this one's interesting.
Oh, interesting, 50-50. So this is the kind of information that will be helpful for us, because we will then go out and continue our writer engagement and talk to more folks and understand, what's kind of behind this answer. Are there people that are concerned about security and would like more lighting? Or are people more interested in lighting as kind of a fun add-on aspect? So that it's definitely helpful information. Okay, here's a fun public art one. So the option one on the left is on the fencing. So you all are maybe familiar, there's a lot of fencing around the Metrolink tracks themselves. And so the idea that we might be able to add public art to make that fencing a little bit more interesting is option one. Option two is amending the bus shelters as a way to add a little bit more interest and identity.
All right, we'll go ahead and stop. People really knew what they wanted on this one.
Oh, there we go. Interesting. Okay. So in this case, preference for maybe adding a little life to the bus shelters. Okay, and then there's landscaping and greenery. So the option on the left is utilizes native plants, and those can solve all kinds of problems like stormwater runoff and adding additional native species to the area. Option two is a freestanding planter. So these could have trees or plants in them, but would be a low maintenance option and a way to add greenery.
Okay, looks like most of the votes are in, so we'll go ahead and end the polling. Share the results.
There you go. Okay, so in this case, option two is much more popular for freestanding planter with plants or trees. All right, and then there's bike parking. So option one looks a lot more like art than a bike rack. And option two has an identity element. You can see it says Lakeview East, which is a neighborhood. So public art in option one, or more of an identity wayfinding signage option in two.
Okay, looks like most of the votes are in, so end the polling.
Oh, there you go. That one is much more even. And this is one where they could easily be combined to think about the bike rack as a piece of art and have elements that tie to the history of the place, but kind of fun to see what people's eyes are drawn to. Okay, so that transitions us into our question and answer. And I'm going to kick it off with one question about the timeline for implementation of the project. So as Jackie talked through the timeline of our process, it sets us up to have the final design at the beginning of April. And then what will happen shortly thereafter is construction documents, and then they'll get going, and hopefully by sometime this summer, there'll be a nice place for everyone to enjoy at the Emerson Park stop. So Jackie, do you have other questions that we need to field?
I haven't seen very many questions, but so if anybody has any, please type them in the chat box, or you can raise your hand or something, but typing them in the chat box is definitely the easiest way. Another question though that I have heard before is about who will keep this project looking nice and pretty. And so, you know, that's something that we do want to consider when we're looking at the design, is what the maintenance of some of this looks like. And St. Clair County Transit District will be maintaining this project once it's built. So, you know, it's very exciting to have them as a partner so that they can keep the project looking nice and a great space for many years to come. Okay. So we don't have any other questions right now. So if you have any questions, we're going to show our contact information. So we definitely be willing to field any of those questions if you want to send via email. Always happy to help answer any questions you may have. So with that, it looks like we got through all of our information. We had a lot to cover, but we were able to get through it. So this is my contact information. My name's Jackie again. And like I said, you can email me. Definitely happy to answer any questions. Catherine's contact information is up there as well. Again, I want to promote the CMT website, has been at the bottom of every slide. So please visit their website for more information. And then you can actually go ahead and register for our second design workshop. That link is listed on this last slide as well, and will also be on their website. Again, we'll follow up with an email that is a link to the recording and you know, the couple questions that we were able to get through, and the link for the next design workshop as well. And thank you. We did receive, I do want to highlight, thank you for some of the ideas that we received in the chat box. So we'll definitely be keeping a history of this chat, and would definitely be happy to touch base with anybody that wants to talk more about the project. Does any of our project sponsors have anything they want to say before we sign off?
I just want to thank everyone who joined us this evening. We really appreciate your ideas and your engagement, and we want this to be your project. So we want to hear from you. If you're a resident or a stakeholder or a business owner in East St. Louis, we want to hear from you and your neighbors and your family and your friends about what you would like to see in East St. Louis, because this really is your project. So thank you very much for attending, and we hope to see you again at the next workshop.
And if you see pictures of things you like, just email them. You've got Jackie and Catherine's email. So if you see something like that, or like the trash cans, I love the trash can idea, and it can be art. Trash cans can be art. So keep the ideas coming. We love it. And thank you for attending tonight.
Okay, thanks everybody, and have a great night.